So we are streaming a Cogmind turn-based speedrun race here. You see, Decoderm has already gotten started, has not gotten their prepping for next run message out, so I will let them know. Yeah, as you can see, this is a seated speedrun, so that people are largely dealing with the same challenges. You can see the map's the same. Now, some aspects of the RNG, like does a shot hit and so forth, I believe do not come directly from the seed, so those may be different, especially if you turn up at different times, but that's okay. So, fairly standard rushing through materials. Yeah. Now this is in the lead, despite them both hitting the exit at the same real time. This has done it in fewer turns, 41 turns instead of 61. Actually, it looks like Mouth also has his prep message up, but it's over his status instead of his map. So hang on. Ooh, and from the Discord, Pimsky is coming in right in between our two streamers' times at 51 turns to reach -9. Hey, Zylan. And Decoderm has reached -8 at 110 turns. Very nice. Yes, Mouth has the message properly removed now. This is good. It is less bothersome on the status because we can still tell roughly how core and such are doing, but yeah, it's good to have. Also, we can see classic speedrunning dash through without engaging, even in materials which favors combat quite heavily. That's okay. Neither player has any flight units yet, so both are still going on core hover. And Nelt has fallen behind Decoderm a little, at 131 to -8. Now, these small differences can definitely be made up later, but they can also accumulate for a while, so we'll see how this goes. It will get interesting when the maps get bigger, which is coming up in Factory. Right now the maps are still fairly small, plus it's really quite consistent to identify main exits without needing any sort of in-game tools to do that, like a signal interpreter or hacking for exit locations or so forth. Though Mouth has just picked up a signal interpreter, speaking of that, which will be super useful later on for identifying exits and making sure we do not wind up in the caves or in other branches that would add a lot of time to a run. So Factory in 200 turns for Mouth. Pretty good. Desinum has already started terminal hacking to get exit locations and so forth. Ooh, Melt has come upon a cache of flight units. Given that it's so close to the entrance, Desinum is likely to also see this cache when he gets to factory, unless he starts in a different place. Sometimes with these maps, the map will be the same, determined by the seed, but the starting position is somewhat randomized. I don't know the factors that go into that. I've definitely heard hypotheses that chutes go into that. Oh, from the Discord we see that Moore has just started up and got to -9 in 36 turns, which is faster than anyone else in this run so far. Pinsky has gotten to -8 in 180 turns, which is, not spectacular, but could very well still work out as a good time. Now, Thesis is slowing down momentarily to launcher some swarmers, which makes a lot of sense, specifically because otherwise the swarmers will keep pursuing him, and even with the 2 cesium ion thrusters, they'd be the same speed. Pinsky has reached -7 at 208 turns, very comparable to Malthus's time. We see Desinum still a little bit slower, but has just gotten to the flight stockpile, so they're at the same place, roughly, and has now been a little bit faster due to not encountering those swarmers earlier. Seems to be intending to fly past, which definitely could work out okay because he has the cover of the machines and the walls. Yeah, Xylan, it does make the good point that swarmers could also drop more flight units. They tend not to drop very good flight units, which is the thing. They tend to drop very poor flight units for their level. Now we see our streamers exploring in different directions, and Desinum has actually gone and found another flight unit prototype. The flight units that are prototypes are generally noticeably faster than their regular versions, and plus having an extra one is fairly nice as a backup. That one looks like he put it on because no, they're the same speed. Maybe he didn't put it on, not sure. So Moore is reached -8 at 127 turns from the Discord. Yeah, not bad. Ooh, Malthusis has found a sensor wave, which means he now has the sensor and signal interpreter combo. You don't always get it in speedruns, but it's very nice for taking less damage to the very precious flight units that help you go faster. And Moore is also reached -7 at 175 turns, which is the fastest factory entry we've seen on this seed. Now Desinum has attached the prototype, turned out to be a working, improved cesium ion thruster, and you can see that now he is faster than Malthusis is. Malthusis has also, in his evolution, taken his second power slot, so that if he finds more flight units in the style of he can go in the style of a heavy flying build and take engines to power them all. Yes, both now into -6. Malthusis is running an energy deficit at the moment, to be noted, which means Desinum definitely picked up and has put on an engine at some point to be sustaining the 3 flight units without that. Otherwise, there would be deficit issues. Generally, the core power can only run one thruster on its own. Melt is likely also to have to slow down at some points if he's not like picking up parts or otherwise stopping, and that can be an issue time-wise. So they have both reached -6 at relatively similar times. Desinum got there 354, Mouth got there 378. Pimsky reports that he is stuck in -7 and has not yet gotten to -6. Given that he started a bit later on, he may well find -6 very shortly. Moore got to -6 at 274 turns, setting a very nice fast pace. So I don't know very much about her builds and setup because we can't see that on stream. She's just on the Discord, so we are only seeing split times. That kind of fast time does suggest either very efficient pathing, lots of flight units, or both, but I don't know. Melt has actually stopped moving to avoid being seen by the hunter. It just preserving the ability to go fast for longer. I also see treads taking the time to go into a room for treads as propulsion armor under the same thing. It's the same sort of idea, preserving the ability for speed. This is definitely characteristic to one-shot speed runs, where you have the seed, you do it once, which is as opposed to trying for world records and so forth, whereas often we're willing to do this several hundred times, or at least lots of times, in order to get the runs where the RNG helps you out. If you want to see an example of that, ZXC did a stream a while back where it was going for a sub 750 speedrun, and it was actually doing all his attempts on stream to see how to show people how that worked. So Malthus found -5. While Desinum accidentally landed in the caves from -6, and is almost certainly going to take the turn back exit in the second caves to avoid having too much time. Unless it's like a log that tells him that there's, say, like data miner at the end of this, and he wants to take the data conduit because you're outrunning cprogs anyway in speedrunning. So Mouth reached -5 at 561 turns. Pimsky's saying he's still in -7 at turn 507 because he can't get out of the northwest corner of the map. Does happen. Some is rare but possible that the only way out of a map section is through hidden doors because they're still connected. Within main complex maps like this, there is always a way without breaking walls through, though you may have to pass enemies and stuff, but the whole map is connected. Moore is again setting a very strong pace, -5 at 455 turns. She may well win this one, but we'll see. Research becomes more maze-like, and there's a lot more dead ends. Like, it's still connected, but there's a lot more dead ends. Melt has upgraded to long-range sensors and has just hit -4. You can also see Decinum was heat positive for a moment. It's not going to be any more just because heat dissipation increases every evolution. So yeah, 614 turns, mouth is at -4. Decinum has now reached -5, just behind there at 618 turns. So he's fallen a fair bit behind at this point, still recoverable for sure, and definitely still winnable. Also, it looks like they might have started in different map sections because of Decinum's cave strip. Not sure there. They look different to me. Oh, right. Silly me's on a completely different level. And Decinum is up to -4 at 637 turns. Quick exit. Moore just reached -4, 551 turns. Very, very nice. Maltesers has just turned down a reaction control system, which is interesting. It falls under the dodge boost item class, which isn't necessarily obvious damage reduction, but because it reduces the number of chances. It reduces how often you get hit, so it can be damage reduction in its own right in that regard. Xylan says that they did spawn in the same place. Okay, that's good to know. I have definitely heard about a spawn point within a map changing. And I don't yet know why that happens. So Decinum has found a research exit and is ramming the sentry off the research exit, it looks like. Yes, ramming the sentry off the research exit to get in. Or at least trying. Ah, he's dropped onto treads. Even better. And let's make sure that he does not stay on treads. Gone back to flying but is overweight. Now is flying and fast. Yes, there we go. So research at 677. No, 678. I thought that engine drop we just saw would have taken time, but no. 678, pretty nice. Melt is behind that and still in factory. So. Now we see that research has, even though it's the same map generation algorithm, the parameters make it much more maze-like. There's lots more dead ends. And we will see how that plays out here. You can also see Mouth is very willing to lock repair stations and other machines, simply because he's not going to be around for the squads that come by as a result of it. Eight FPS is in the Discord saying, "Who pinged me, ungrateful brats?" because he got pinged regarding this, the speedrun streams. It doesn't have had a very, very quick -4 there, as Mouth is saying in Discord. Pimsky reports still being a -7. Now, we don't know how many turns he's taken, so. He says he just picked a direction and dug to get out, which does work. Mouth, we can see, is having energy problems, actually getting energy alerts running low, and so forth. This does not bode well because, as you can see, it's reached 0 energy, can't move. He's now sat on the ground to regain energy. Moore has reached -3 in the at 713 turns in, had a fairly slow -4, but that's okay. We will see how this goes. In research, because there are so many dead ends, the choice of direction can make a huge difference. Not that, it can't make huge differences in other places, but it's most prominent in research. Pimsky says he's reached -6 in 720 turns. And Mouth has now reached -3, we see. When this happens during evolutions, the status does disappear, and so we get little bits of the evolution screen instead. This is pretty normal. It's just a matter of cropping directly out of a stream. Mouth reached -3, 786 turns. Which is pretty comparable, but decent pacing. I mean, definitely slower than Decinim by a fair bit. That's very possible to make up. And having sensors and signal interpreters so is really useful in navigating research. Pimsky says he's reached extension in 765 turns. I mean, oops, but at the same time, extension has very predictable exits, and in particular, a very predictable main exit back into the main complex. Also, I don't want to spoil extension too much, but I will say that if you know the layout very well, you can and you just want to dash through as fast as possible, you can reliably race past all the hazards in the extension proper. In the chain, that is more difficult, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. In fact, Pimsky has just reported that he reached -5 at 806 turns. So he spent 20 turns in extension. That's not too bad. Yeah, so now we see both of our streamers dashing through research. Decinim has just gotten an impulse thruster array, which will support a fair bit, including some nice engines to power all the flight. Decinim is also flying faster than Malthusas at this point. Malthusas seems to have lost some flight units because he is back down to 37 speed, where Decinim is at 32 speed, and that does add up over many turns. Pimsky also reports that he just failed an 80% hack 4 times. This is, because it's speedrunning, it's probably some hack relevant to get me out of here. Then you're saying, I guess he got the hack. Which hack? Pimsky's hack? Or was it hacking from one of our streamers? Oh, Decinim is now at an energy deficit, so we'll see if he finds more engines or if he has to stop. He may have just gotten an engine shut off because he did not have that issue recently. Pimsky's 20-turn extension. Honestly, that's not all that hard. Assuming that Pimsky was already flying, and flying at a decent speed, that's not too difficult, because in extension, the hazard layout is fairly predictable once you've been there. It is not looking to do any of the stuff where you go through more of the hazards in order to get branch benefits, because he just wants out. So he'll just, yeah, it's not 20 steps. It's a lot more than 20 steps in 20 turns, because he's flying. And because he's not worried about branch benefits and can zip right by most enemies, you can see you can really just dash through. So Decinim -2 at 962, more reports -2 at 1037. Research is a maze. It's still a fairly decent time. It's not currently in the lead time. It's not a super spectacular speedrun time, but often the super spectacular times are for we're going to trust in the RNG, or we're going to throw away many runs and be okay with a ton of runs failing in order to have a because this is faster when the run doesn't fail. Decinim has found this huge flight stockpile. Probably will not have any issues with lack of flight units for the rest of the game. Mouth is saying -3 hertz. He is correct. This is not an easy -3. Decinim is braving swarmers to get to this light stockpile. Which is pretty understandable, though he only takes one array. Probably lack of storage for more. You don't often get storage in speedruns because you have to have a fair amount of mass support to carry it, and you usually don't get that until outside materials, where you have to actually hunt robots down for it. Pimsky is posting what appears to be a screenshot from his speedrun. I will not give any details to avoid spoiling anything, but he does appear to have 4 thrusters on, which explains his speed and extension. And there's also a fairly good, he has a signal interpreter, and extension exits are sometimes obvious, sometimes not. There's a fairly good chance he actually took extension on purpose because he knew he could dash through it. Because you can dash through it quite well if you know. More is reached -1 at 1,143 turns. Pimsky got to -4 at 956. Decinim has chosen into quarantine. Quarantine does have a relatively predictable exit layout as well, not as predictable as extension, but if you know the area well, it's still not too difficult to just get out. Seems to be taking a bit of floor while he has the opportunity, which is okay. So even though Peasant and Branch is not yeah, he may well have gone to Q on purpose. I don't know, I can't ask him, but because Q has such a predictable exit layout, especially compared to the main research levels, which can be quite the maze, as we are seeing, he may well have done it on purpose, just because it's saying, okay, spend another 50 turns or whatever in this branch and you get out guaranteed, as opposed to potentially spending quite a bit longer wandering around research. It says probably even less than 50 turns if you have a good sense of the quarantine map layouts, because there's the exit is generally only in one of two places. So he's found the exit. He's also found a very nice alien artifact that can be identified directly by the machines around it. All quarantine alien artifacts can be, which is quite nice. So yeah, you can see he's gotten to access 1,109 turns out of more, and he's taken something very nice with him, too. So, spoilers for about a minute, because I want to explain this. That artifact that he just took is the subatomic replicator. You can use it on any item you can put on the ground, and it makes an exact duplicate of it. And so if he finds like some really nice flight unit or something, or some engines to power it, or something else that he really thinks will help him win, well, now he can have two. So that's useful there. And that's probably why he took it, because it was so close as an opportunity. Melt has gotten himself just spotted by two squads of swarmers, almost certainly. So you can see he left that room very fast. He's going to be trailing enemies a lot. Decennim has picked up more flight and access, and has either put another engine on, or it just used the subatomic replicator to make one. I'm not sure. Yeah, Melt has now found the flight stockpile we saw Decennim find a while back. It's also not in access. You don't have to comb the map quite so exploring every last area for exits, because in other maps the exits can be like just hidden in a corner somewhere. In access, the prefabs are fairly large. As you might imagine, for exits leading to the surface and so forth, they are fairly well protected, and they have prefabs around them because of that. And so once you know what those look like, you can look for them, and the vast majority of speedrun attempters do already know that, including both of our streamers. Mouth definitely does. Has won many, many times. More reports that she died in -1, 1,296 turns. Yeah, access is pretty big, but so are like factory and research, right? It's a matter of what you have to do to make sure you're not missing an exit, because you don't want to backtrack. Backtracking not only wastes a lot of turns, it's probably driving you right back into your tail full of enemies. Hey, Moore. I see you're watching the stream now that your own attempt has finished. Pimsky reports that he reached -3 at 1,104 turns. Yeah, Moore saying access is generally easier to navigate for me than research. this is generally true. Not only does the access map settings make it a little bit less of a maze, you get wider hallways and less dead ends and so forth, but the exits are huge. And once you've seen the exits, you can do stuff like keep an eye out for corridors that are the right width to lead into the exits and stuff. And you don't have to like really peek into every last bit of the map. So yes, Xylan makes a good point that on foot while walking access is pretty nasty. Yeah, this is true because you have to stop and deal with enemies so much, and the wide open means you often encounter them in wide hallways. But honestly, that's true basically after materials. As soon as you get into factory, the layouts start favoring stealth. Moore has also reported on the Discord that the access on the seed is fairly bad. I mean, we see Desinum is still in it. Melt has also taken the option to go into quarantine on purpose. Or potentially not on purpose because he didn't ID it. He's lost a signal interpreter. Yeah. Moore says also went to queue on purpose. It is a very easy queue. We've seen this. But in general, the research branches that you can get to directly from the main complex both have fairly predictable exit layouts. This is not too much. It's not too hard once you've been there a few times. Assuming you're not like massively slow overweight or something, it is actually fairly safe to take take any exit from research, because if it's up to the next level, great. No, for speedrunning, values of safe. And if it's not, you have a fairly predictable way to get to a main exit. Moore says Desi is showcasing why I died right now. Lots of enemies all at once. Too many to really run from easily. Also, you can see Desinum has lost all his propulsion. He's on core movement, and he's way overweight on core movement. So he is actually now dropping parts. You can see energy consumption has gone massively negative. He's probably running something that takes a lot of energy, potentially ECM, not sure. Malthusas is looking around Q, but is also running low on matter, which is an issue, especially because you have to be careful with hunting for matter in Q due to researchers. Yeah, Desinum is now gone energy positive, probably turned off something that was draining his energy very hard. So Desinum is back to core hover, now at least going fast, but still has a decent amount of core. We notice Malthusas is out of quarantine, took basically the same path, but has gotten through slower at reaching access at 1,416 turns. And he declined the subatomic replicator, which is really interesting. More, you're saying you died right near where Jesse currently is, but I missed this right when you said it, so which location? Because I was looking at either Discord or the stream at the time. So Destinum has managed to get off an access main. And Moore says, by the freight elevator in that enormous room, hallway to the east. So yes, this clarifies. Yeah, Silent. Access main without hackware is pretty hard. You have at a security level 1 terminal indirect, it's 5% chance. Moore is explaining that the enemy tail that killed her involved at least 3 swarmer squads and a sentry, which, yeah, that the swarmers can keep up and the sentry is very persistent. Pimsky reports that he reached -2 at 1,293. Given how everyone else has encountered difficulties too, this isn't actually like a bad time or anything at all. So Decim is currently going faster and has probably explored more of the map, but he's in substantially worse shape. Malthus is basically fine except for being low on matter. Decim is back to launching it up. And has already lost over half his core, of note. So, though he knows where the exit is, he doesn't necessarily know what paths lead there. He knows what direction to head in, but that could give him the front, side, or back of the exit prefab. We don't know. And the front likes to shred people. The front likes to shred people. The back, you want to have a way to get its sealed door open, and at the side you want to cut through. So Decim found the front. As you can see, it is guarded by behemoths, and you have to get through that big door. So he now knows the entire orientation of the exit, because that's always fixed. Whether he can cut through or go around remains to be seen. So the back exit that's you just have to open the door is basically directly south, in case you haven't seen the exit. But if you're watching speedruns this far, hopefully you have seen the exit, because it is kind of a spoiler already. So Destim does have a way to cut walls. I'm not sure if that way is sufficient to cut through the reinforced side. Because if he can cut through the reinforced side, he can do it. The too wide corridor he was just circling is circling it because it's likely to lead to the back. The back of the surface exit has a too wide corridor leading out of it. and now sometimes that rapidly changes to a different width, or it goes to a T intersection or whatever, but two wide corridors are worth following in access for that reason, and especially one that you know to be close to the exit itself has a good chance of leading there. And that's why he's backtracked and taken a bunch of fire in backtracking to get there. As you can see, it's quite a long enemy tail, and is going basically right into more enemies. So he's taking a bit of extra time to use the trip to the room in order to take less damage because the walls protect him. And Melt has now gotten basically the same situation of he's found the front of the exit. So it looks like Desnam is digging quite far. This is something of a risk, because he's found that promising corridor doesn't actually lead there. Moore is saying that Desnam has enough coverage that he could break through the front doors with the enhanced Nova Cannon. This is a good point. He's only 10% exposed. He doesn't have that many hits he can tank, but he can tank a few hits in order to get through. He's successfully broken through to the back, so this is back entrance. He's gotten to the terminal from the back. Quite conveniently. Doing this kind of thing is a fairly substantial cave-in risk. You can see that the wall caved in behind him and now on him. So he's now gotten a bunch more corrupted and he took a bunch of core damage. Yes, the first cave-in did cut the programmers off from him, which was useful in that sense. Yes, now we'll see. So Melt is also digging, but he's digging very differently. He's trying to dig a reinforced barrier. I believe that's command, because it's not near the surface. He knows where the surface is. Yeah, that's almost certainly command, because you can see the surface over there. I think Desnam is looking around for a door breaker, trying to get through the back. Malthusas has found the blue machine is an energy cycler. If you break it, you get more patrols deployed into access, but it also opens the orange back doors. So Desnam tried the terminal, failed the terminal, and is now dealing with getting out. He seems to be digging with melee. Believe you can't just dig around this because it goes reinforced. Yeah, see, right there. That one, there are melee weapons that can break through that, but generally you want to be both flying with them rather than walking because speed matters to the melee momentum bonus, and you want to actually have momentum as well rather than being closed in this way. Pimsky reports that he reached access at 1,427 turns. And Desnam has now been basically sealed in because an engineer sealed up the wall. This is protecting him from enemies, but it's making things a little difficult for him to get through. Depending on the strength of his melee weapon, he may be able to cut open some space diagonally and then take a proper momentum run for the barrier with momentum. Yeah, that was not the right way because all the enemies were there. I would have gone the other way. But that depends on the weapon strength. Some weapons are just not strong enough for that because there are caps on how much of a bonus you can get from a melee weapon by speed and momentum, and so not all of them will get up to the 70 damage you need. Yeah, see, Mouth is doing a momentum run at the reinforced side. It's deliberately getting up to 3. And he's gotten a nice melee weapon that's gotten him through. The blue shell that you see is comparatively easy to get out. Yeah, Desnam has just died. Yeah, Xylem points out that Desnam could run inside the walls for momentum. I mean, you can, but you lose 1 momentum for going sideways. Or at least for like turning a bit from the direction you were actually going in, and since he appeared to not have like really high damage anyway, because it didn't look like that was something where he wanted to lose that. Yeah, Mouth is 1. 1,800 turns exactly. Xylan says attack doesn't care about direction, just if you move around corners it loses 1. I'm not totally sure about that. I'd have to read the manual. Pinsky is still going. Mouth is saying in Discord that the biggest thing is making sure your build can actually take on the final exit. Pinsky went to command. 1,568 turns. I'm not sure why you went to command. The exit layout there is not predictable, unlike extension or quarantine or testing or so forth, and also command is a death trap. I mean, you can W0 from it. You can obviously you can win from it if you take like a proper extended endgame build in there, but command is a death trap. Why he went there, I don't know. Worth says she's had a great speed run coming out of command. I mean, yes, I'm sure. It's definitely possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's pretty funny given that 1, you are going into a death trap, and 2, the command exit prefab includes 3 security level 1 terminals for which to hack for the location of the surface exit. So if you find command, it seems to make more sense to instead use those terminals. So Desnum streams off because he's taking a break for food. And since both our streamers have concluded this will be wrapping up probably fairly soon, we could wait and see how Pimsky is doing and report on that. Yeah, and now we have both streamers offline, so it's just pretty reasonable. At this point, there's probably, I mean, if you're here, you can follow this on the Discord. There's not super a reason to continue streaming video when there is no video to show. So I'm going to stop the stream for now, do hang out in the Discord, and I don't know if there's going to be another race today. Looks like there may not be. Pimsky says he managed to win it. Surface in 1633. Nice. So yeah, I'm gonna sign this one off. See you around.